Welcome to the 31st episode of Generation Gap Book Reviews. I'm Christy the mom.
And I'm Lena the daughter.
In this episode, we are going to be reviewing a trilogy of books.
The Summoners.
Yeah.
Summoner series. It's not what you think it is.
What would people think it is?
The Summoner or Summoners, but it's only
Oh,
Summoner series.
you don't. It just feel awkward to say it like that.
Yeah.
It's called the trilogy is called Summoner,
Yeah.
and you want to say the Summoner or Summoners plural.
Yeah.
Yeah. The first book is called The Novice. The second book is The Inquisition, and the third book is called The Battlemage. And who's the author, Lena?
Taran Matharu.
Good.
I did it this time, yay.
And
First try.
as far as how we came across this series, you just came across it because of me, right?
Probably. It was on your shelf.
Yeah, I own them. I came across them in one of the more unique stories for me, which is years ago when I was working on trying to publish my first book and still had hopes to publish it traditionally. I was part of reading about how to publish and everything. Some of the major advice out there is to make sure that you can compare your book to something else.
Yeah.
I get it, but I also feel like it's a terrible thing to have to tell people to do. You can't write anything unique because you have to be able to compare it to something that exists. So when does anything unique ever get to get written?
Yeah.
But I get that publishing companies don't necessarily want to take a chance on something brand new by a brand new author.
Yeah.
At that time, I really wasn't much of a reader. I read a lot when I was younger, all the way through school and a little bit into my 20s. Then I had a kid. And
What?
then I had another kid. And even when I got to a point where I probably would have had time to read again, it's just not something I really pushed myself back into. I just didn't. So I would read maybe a book a year, and really none of them were what I would consider to be similar to the genre of what I was writing. So I set out to try to find some books that might be similar, not just because then I could figure out something to compare it to, but also because I knew it was good for a writer to read. It's just common sense. It's to help you to be more rounded as a writer.
Yeah.
So I went and started looking for sci-fi and fantasy books because my book is kind of has a foot in both realms in a way. And in the end, I'm not sure I really found anything that I could compare my series to anyway, but this was basically the beginning of me getting back into reading. So I'm glad that it happened, because now I read a lot and I really enjoy it. And I wonder, as soon as I started reading again, I wondered, why have I not been doing this all this time? Anyway, so I came across this series, at least the first book in the series, and it's fantasy, but the main reason that it stuck out to me was actually because of what's the connection to our lives?
Blacksmithing.
Because my dad is a blacksmith, which means Lena's grandfather a blacksmith.
No way.
And the main character, he's a blacksmith apprentice, and it's his
Apprentice.
and the man he's apprenticing under is kind of like an adopted father to him.
Yeah.
And even more so than that, the main character in in my first novel, her dad's a blacksmith. So that's the story. Now, we're going to start with the first book, and we are going to review each book individually, but this is going to be spoiler-free. So even when we review the second book and the third book, we're not going to spoil the previous books, which means that each book that we review will probably be a little shorter and a little shorter because we have to be more vague and we can't say as much about it. We'll just, especially the synopsis, we'll talk more about what we like and didn't like without giving away anything that happened in the previous books. Anything that you can't find out, at least from official synopses or the title of the books.
Yeah.
So, starting with The Novice, in this book, the main character his name's Fletcher.
Fletcher.
He was orphaned in a kind of remote northern town and taken in by a blacksmith.
What?
And when the book starts, Fletcher comes across a magical book that has some interesting words in it that he can't seem to resist reading from.
Words, yep.
And what you should know about this world is that certain people in this world have the ability to summon demons. And when we say demons, in this world, it really just means like a fantastical creature from another world.
Yeah.
They call them demons.
Like Pokemon.
And if the person has the ability to summon demons and they read some kind of some kind of spell or whatever, then they can summon it, and it basically they can kind of tame it, I guess. Once they have summoned a demon, they can access the demon's energy. I think they call it mana, actually,
Oh yeah.
to cast spells themselves.
Yeah.
And there's a lot more to it, but that's the basis of it. And the people who can summon demons are generally from noble families.
Yeah.
They're pretty much they're descendants of royalty, essentially.
Yeah.
So Fletcher, being this random orphan boy in a remote town, there's no reason to believe that he can summon a demon, but he reads from this book and he's able to summon a demon.
What?
And then shortly thereafter, he's forced to flee his hometown and kind of just stumbles across a school for summoners, where summoners are trained to become battle mages so they can fight in a never-ending war against orcs.
Orcs.
Okay, so Lena, what did you like about this book?
World building. Because it was the first book. And the school was fun. And it was just fun.
Well, let's not start that again. It was fun. So you like the magical system and the demons and everything?
And the world building.
Yeah.
And the...
Kind of learning everything along with Fletcher.
Yeah. And characters.
Okay.
They all had different personality.
And relationships. Not just the characters, but the...
Relationship friendships.
Yeah.
Growing friendships. Teachers.
Yeah.
Relationship with teachers. Different ones.
You kind of get that, like, mentor-teacher personality here.
Yeah.
Anything else?
No, you go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, the same basic stuff that you said. I liked the world building. It was not complicated. It was not hard to follow. It wasn't dark and gritty, like, especially early on in my... This is some of the earlier... I mean, when I was younger, I didn't read a lot of fantasy. I'm not saying I never read any. I couldn't tell you every book I read when I was a teenager or a kid. But I was never one who read, like, Narnia or Lord of the Rings or any of that stuff that was big, even back when I was younger.
Yeah.
And some of what I tried to read here when I was trying to read more in my own genre was a lot of just dark, gritty stuff, which now I know means that I was really just finding the wrong stuff. But this was a breath of fresh air when I first read it. It was just, It was nice because it was more, but that doesn't mean that it was just happy and rainbows, because
happy and rainbows.
One thing we haven't mentioned though is besides the humans and the orcs that they're always fighting against, there are dwarves and there are elves in this book. So it definitely kind of gave it a feel of some sort of stereotype fantasy.
Yeah.
You think Lord of the Rings, even something like World of Warcraft, things like that. And I'm not even going to pretend that Matharu stayed away from stereotypes. The elves are lofty and clearly, like, think of themselves as above everybody else. The dwarves live underground and make weapons. He pretty much follows the stereotypes, but I personally was never bothered by it, really.
Mm-mm.
And race plays a lot into this book because there's a lot of both race and class warfare.
Mm-hmm.
There are definitely political things going on when it comes to the dwarves, elves, and humans. When I was about halfway through this book, I described it as Harry Potter meets Pokemon.
Mm-hmm. But you never...
At the time, I had not read Harry Potter yet, but I knew enough about it to know about the school, and there was the school involved here that I felt like was really similar. Now that I've read Harry Potter, I stand by that assessment.
Yeah, I agree.
And the demons that the summoners can summon and that they train and stuff,
yeah,
it's very much like Pokemon to the degree where, just like I have in the past just wished that I could have certain Pokemon, I kind of really wish I could have some of the demons in this book.
Ignatius,
that's Fletcher's demon. It's he's in a way he's kind of a character in itself throughout the series.
Yeah.
Okay, so is there anything, Lena, that you remember not liking about this book?
Long. No.
It was long?
No.
Because I didn't think it was that long.
That's not what I meant. I mean, I think to a point it was a little difficult getting into it first, but I don't think that was really that much. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, all of just him living his normal life and dealing with, bullies and
bullies
before anything with the summoning and demons and stuff happens. Actually, even after he summons Ignatius, getting to the city, then I feel like that was a bit tedious. Some of the book was a bit predictable. I'm not really sure anything particularly surprising happened throughout most of this book, but that's not to say there weren't a few things that were unexpected. I think most of my issue came down to the writing style. Like, for example, dialogue tags.
Mm-hmm.
I can't. If I went through this book and I underlined every time that somebody growled their dialogue,
Hmm.
I may be exaggerating, but I remember a lot of people growled their dialogue, and it just doesn't make sense. I mean, I'm not saying you could never call somebody the way somebody's talking growling, but it's not really that common.
Yeah.
And there was also this weird thing that the author had about having people whisper in each other's ear,
Oh yeah.
even while they're walking. So apparently, these people are hanging off each other all the time because they're walking along whispering in each other. Do you really
Not
converse
while
with
I'm
people
walking, but
that much whispering? How much do you whisper in people's ear anyway? Or are they whisper in your
I
ear?
well, I don't whisper in their ear, but I whisper in their direction a lot.
It's whispering in their ears how it's
Oh,
worded.
okay.
And when they're walking. So it just made me like imagine weird things, especially since sometimes it was with the human and the dwarfs are short. So how is that even possible? Is he carrying him around all the time? I mean, it just doesn't make
Like,
sense.
how you doing? You're on my shoulder.
So I felt like and I think maybe part of this is because the way Matharu wrote this was definitely a little unusual. You're the one who reminded me.
It was from Wattpad.
Yeah, he originally published it in chapters or whatever on Wattpad, which I don't know if Wattpad's really around much anymore, but it's a way that people can put out stories themselves and share it all at once or a chapter at a time and give each other feedback and it's a way to share stories with each other. And then I don't know the story. I haven't looked up how he ended up getting it published, but he did end up getting it published through at least a small press. But at some point from Wattpad to this company, I feel like I'm not saying it's bad by any means, but I feel like there could have been a little more polishing. That's all. But
Yeah.
in the end, it was definitely good enough for me to like it and want to keep going on the series. So, before we move on to the second book, what do you rate the first one?
4.5.
And I gave it 4 stars. So, the second book is called The Inquisition, and without trying to spoil too much about the first book, it does end with a certain event that leads that leads into the second book. And a year later, Fletcher is in jail and awaiting an inquisition, basically a trial.
That's all we can tell you.
And that's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say about that part of it. And then because a year, just waiting in jail for an inquisition isn't exactly a full story,
Things happen.
and some
Wow.
life-changing events are actually tied up in this trial.
Yeah.
And before we know it, Fletcher is being sent to the jungles to help lead a covert mission of rescue and destroy. And he's leading a unit, and things are not all what they seem. And Lena, what did you like about the second book? If it's basically all the same kind of stuff you liked from the first one, that's fine.
Yeah.
You don't have to try to
It's
come up
like
with new stuff.
continuation, just because it's always nice to come back to a world which you've already learned about.
Hmm. The main thing that would be different in my likes for this book, I think, is that Fletcher's in the first book he's just learning about having any abilities and what to do with them and everything, and in this second book they're already more established and in fact have a chance to expand from there, and we expand more on the world building and the magic system
Yeah.
and stuff too, and that's neat.
Yeah.
I also would say that this book had more interesting twists. I don't mean twists like when you think about a thriller and there's a big twist, but more
Yeah.
interesting, less predictable things happen in
Yeah.
this book. I remember at least one that I figured out early on, but there was another one that I kept speculating about, and I was sure it was going to end up being something more than what they were saying. And it was, but it wasn't what I was speculating. It was
Oh.
actually very different. So it was really neat. And then
Yeah.
the way the second book ended was like, for me, it was just like, yes, okay, I can't wait for the third one. It was
Yeah.
a kind of it was a cliffhanger, but not like the kind of cliffhanger in books where they don't where I hate it when books end on cliffhangers in a what feels like a cheap way to get you to want to come back,
Mhm.
and it's like either they kind of undid something that happened or they just didn't wrap up what you wanted them to wrap up. They wrapped up stuff, but what was being set up for book 3 I was super excited about,
Yeah.
so that made me really happy at the end of this book.
Yeah.
Is there anything in this book particularly that you remember not liking?
It was just more boring. I didn't enjoy it that much.
It was more boring. So the other one was boring,
No, I'm
and
just
this one was
saying
more
it
boring.
it was just a little.
The other one you said was kind of slow. Was this one slow in different ways?
Yeah, I didn't find as much intrigue in this one. And also big words. lots of vocabulary where I'm just like, I don't know what that word is.
It's so funny to me that you remember that specifically about this one book.
Cause I think this was the only book. This is the book I started being like, I'm gonna start writing down a list of words I don't understand from books.
And
I
did
did
you ever
that.
look them up?
No,
So
I
you
don't
still
think
don't know what
so.
they mean.
I don't know what
Do
they
you have
mean.
your list somewhere still?
Yes,
Might be fun
I
sometime
still
to go
have the
back and
list.
see. And you can go back and look at it and be like, oh, I know what that one means now, or I still don't know what
Yeah.
that one means.
I realized after that book that also draws me out of the story. Every time I find a word, I'm like, I gotta get my phone out, gotta write it down. So, yeah, it just didn't.
So it maybe felt a little
Yeah.
more like a tedious read to you this
Yeah,
time.
we should look through
But
those.
apparently not enough for you to not like it.
No,
Just
I like
not
it.
like it as much as the first one.
I just didn't like it as much the first one.
Yeah, the only thing I specifically remember in this book, and I don't even know that I could say it was it didn't make me dislike it. I just noticed a trope that with Fletcher was that kind of character where
Gary
good
Stu.
things. Well, yeah. See, overall he is kind of a Gary Stu character. I'm not saying he doesn't have to work for anything, but he is kind of, and especially in this one area, which is that good things happen to him just because he's a nice guy.
Yeah,
Because he's the
it's
one
true.
who's nice to the servant at the school, or he's the one who is willing to go back and help somebody that everybody else walked away, and then he just kind of lucks into good things. And
Yeah,
that's it didn't like ruin anything for me, but it's kind of lazy writing.
yeah,
On the other hand, sometimes it gives me a good feeling because you want people to be good and you want the good things to
yeah.
happen to them because they're good. So it's
Very
like it's
true.
kind of a mixed bag, I
Yeah.
guess. And I'm also not really a huge fan of like warfare and
War.
missions like this where they're going into somewhere dangerous and it's just fighting and it's not my kind of thing, but that's
Yeah.
not necessarily an issue with the book. One thing though is there was a character that played a very important role near the end of the book, and I literally finished the book and went, I have no idea who that was. I do not remember this person at all.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it was my fault because I wasn't paying enough attention, or if it was because I remember now because I've read it since then. I remember
Yeah.
that character being introduced earlier in the book, and I think even in the first book. But I think maybe as it got closer to this big thing that this character was going to be involved in, maybe the author could have kind of helped us remember who that character was a bit more. Like we
Yeah.
brought him up more, reminded us who he was. I don't know. It really might have been my own fault, but I just remember going, what?
What, when, where, why, how?
Overall, though, what do you rate the book?
4.
I also gave this one 4. So for it was no to me it was there were differences, there were things that I might have liked more about this one and things I might have liked less about this one, and they evened out
Yeah.
to be the same rating as the first book for me.
Yeah.
And now we come to
Yeah.
the Battlemage, where it all
There's
ends.
a Battlemage. What?
So this one starts immediately after the previous one ends, because I think I mentioned that the second book starts about a year after the first one.
Yeah.
Immediately, from the time of what happens at the end of the second book, I'm not going to say because it would be definitely a spoiler. And essentially, to sum up this book, Fletcher and the rest of his unit, they have to make it home, and then Fletcher is basically working toward being part of like a big showdown with the orcs in the jungle.
Yeah.
Because the war that really does go on for hundreds of years, at least is coming to a sort of a head. Whether it will be finished or not, it's coming to a head. And what did you like about this book, Lena?
It's because it was like, still like continuous things. Like I like fantasy a lot, so it's just fun. And war.
You like war?
Yeah, I don't know. I have some like darkness inside of me, I think.
I mean,
Sometimes I read a book, and if somebody forgives somebody who what I think is too early for somebody to be forgiven, I go, ugh. So, yeah.
and so because you instead you would rather they go to war.
No.
Well, we're talking about war right now, so I mean,
I
I
have
figured that's why
darkness.
you thought that. Anyway,
Anyway, yeah, go ahead.
so you enjoyed the continuation of the
Yeah.
same world that you enjoyed from before, and you like the war,
And magic.
and you like magic
Demons.
and demons.
Ignatius.
Yes. Like I said, he's kind of a character in itself, and he actually has his own character arc in a way in this series, and
Yeah.
it's a lot of fun. And I should mention, if you're thinking about reading this series and you don't want to be spoiled, you might not want to look too closely at the covers of the books,
Yeah.
because this is not the only series that this is the case for, but the covers can kind of give things away.
Exactly.
Bothers me a little bit. Anyway, what I found interesting about this book is that I don't know that I've ever read a book that is more distinctly three separate acts in the story or three separate parts outside of books that are actually divided into three parts. Because, of course, some books are like that.
Yeah.
Part one I loved. Part one was that continuation of the end of the first book or second book that I thought it gave me everything I was hoping for.
Yeah.
Part two was really neat. I can't even explain what was going on in part two, really. But essentially, it's Fletcher sort of he's coming into his own as a leader, and I really liked it. And part three, I was dreading because part three was what I knew was going to be basically
boom,
just war,
what
battle.
is it good for?
And I don't like that kind of stuff. You might, but I don't.
What is it good for?
Fortunately, I'm just ignoring you.
I know that.
In the end, it did not end up being as I don't know. I'm not talking, and right now I'm not talking about not liking war and battles because of brutality. And I mean, there's that I don't care for, but also sometimes I just find it boring. Just people are fighting each other. What's enjoyable about that? Tell me what's enjoyable about people just fighting each other.
Well, if it drags on,
well,
yes.
okay.
But if there's other things happening during it, like conversations or whatever, it's more interesting.
But fortunately, so I read this book twice, and the first two books, when I read them the second time, I didn't feel the need to update my reviews. But the third book, I actually did. The first time was where I really had that dread of, I'm not looking forward to getting into the battle and the fighting, and that might have tainted how I thought of it. The second time I read it, I think I knew more what that third part was going to be like, and I knew that it wasn't going to be as bad as I thought, so I was able to just enjoy it more.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I enjoyed really about it was, maybe it was just a matter of the author wanting to keep it from being dull and just fighty. He showcases Fletcher's ingenuity in all the different ways that he figures out how to basically fight back against. Frankly, he's David to the Goliath in this, and he has to use his wits as much as anything, and that makes it interesting.
So, the book, what did we say our dislikes?
Not yet. That's where we're. So, do you have anything about this one particular that you remember disliking? No, nothing.
Not that I can think of, at least. If there was,
not boring or slow this time, huh?
Well, the ending was, I felt like could have said more, but.
I probably could have. That's one thing too, since I've already mentioned that I read this book twice. The first time I said at the end, or after I finished it, that I feel like the ending left a lot to be desired.
Yeah.
And even the truth was, it felt anticlimactic, but I couldn't even explain why. And I realized that it might have just been because I didn't want to leave the story world, and I was just sad that it was over. But I thought there were some storylines that the author failed to wrap up, at least in a way I'd prefer. The second time I read it, I really didn't feel that way as much. And then when I talk about what I didn't like, I can only talk about things that I didn't like the first time, because both of those things, basically the worry about the battle. War part not being something I'd enjoy, and feeling like it was anticlimactic and didn't wrap up like I wanted to. All of that was the first time through. The second time through, I liked it a lot more. So that's all I can really say about what I didn't like. Okay, so what do you rate this book?
5 stars. It was my favorite in the series.
Same here. I started out with the first time I read it, I gave it 4 stars, and I have updated it to 5 stars after my second reading, and that definitely makes it my favorite, because I was 4.45 and you were 4.5, 4.5.
4, yeah.
Interesting.
Yep.
So now, who would you recommend this whole series to?
People.
Oh, well, that's always a good start.
Fantastical people.
Fantastical people. So they have to be fantastical themselves.
I mean, like,
you can't read this if you're boring or, just a regular person, really.
Wow.
Hey, you're the one that said it.
I didn't mean it in that way. I meant people who like fantastical things.
Oh.
So, like...
Well, yeah, you probably should like fantasy to read this. It's pretty fantastical.
Well, yeah, but I love fantasy. So, like, it was a lot of fun.
Do you think fans of Harry Potter would enjoy this?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, whoa, though.
Like, because it was...
And because, only the first book was really all that Harry Potter-esque.
Yeah.
But I still think I still think
fantasy.
It has some crossover in regards to who would like it. Yeah.
Yeah, and then 13 up. Probably.
I think 13 is probably pretty good.
We still don't know how old Fletcher was, but he could have been 54.
I'm sure he was older than 15 or than 13, but he definitely was still a teenager.
He was definitely younger than 20.
The series is young adult. And yeah, I don't think I have much different to say. I mean,
Oh,
teens, adults, and yes, it's definitely a heavy enough fantasy. You definitely need to be okay with reading fantasy.
still have something. What I would recommend, however, is reading it really quickly. And like,
Oh yeah.
don't. I waited, okay, between the second book and the third book, I
Okay,
think
so
it
when she
was
says
like,
quickly, she means not taking too long between the books,
yes, that's
not
what I
like trying
meant.
to rush yourself through
No,
the
no,
book in the first
no, no.
place.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Because between the second and third book, I had like 8 months, and I totally forgot everything
Yeah, that's a
almost
long
everything
time
that
to wait to
happened.
finish a series, especially a series
So,
like this where
yeah,
it's not necessarily the most one continual story of a series that I've read, but
yeah,
you definitely need to read them in order, and it definitely calls back to previous books.
yeah.
So,
It was, yeah.
so you think you're gonna read it again at some point,
I'm
and
gonna
read it more
probably,
closely together?
yeah, reread it and then read it with every few books
Well,
probably.
lucky for
So
you, I own them all. Now, before we wrap up, I will mention there is a prequel
there's a
for this
prequel.
series.
I never read it.
The book is called The Outcast. The main character is that mentor teacher we talked about in the first. We talked about at some point when we were talking about the first book.
Yeah,
His name is Arcturus,
Arcturus.
and I read it. I didn't hate it. There's something about it was nice to go back to this world and stuff, but overall it was just too similar to the novice.
Yeah.
So, as I did mention in the first synopsis, that it's more common. Most of the summoners, most of the people who have the ability to summon, are of noble birth. Well, at the time that Arcturus was a teenager, it was only noble
Yeah.
birth kids, and so this story tells kind of the story of how Arcturus became the first common summoner and why. But that means that he's an orphan. He's living a poor life, and he accidentally ends up being able to summon a demon. Same thing that happened with Fletcher.
So a lot of
He ends up
similarities.
at the school with a bunch of rich people who look down on him. Same thing that happened with Fletcher.
Huh.
And while the story itself definitely takes a different turn, a lot of the characters in this book are people who we recognize their names from the Summoner series, other teachers
Yeah.
of the school, and when they're put into peril, we know they're going to survive.
Yeah.
There's not really the stakes don't feel that high because we know that some of these characters at least are going to survive because we know that they were in the book later
Yeah.
in the main series. So I think he just needed to separate himself more from that main series, and he definitely needed to have a different story. I mean, it wouldn't have been so bad. One or the other of these things. Well, I was going to say one or the other of these things maybe wouldn't have been so bad, but both of them together. But really, the story being so similar to Fletcher's story,
Yeah.
that I would have preferred to be different. And if he had separated it more and shown something else happening with Arcturus in the past,
Yeah.
but we knew that all the which characters were for sure going to survive, maybe that wouldn't have been as bad. If at least it had been anyway, it could have been better. That's all I'm saying.
Uh-huh.
I don't know. These have been out for long enough. I kind of doubt he'll ever write more in the series. Well, you never know,
You never know.
or more in this world. Yeah, so I don't personally recommend the prequel, but if you do read the series and you really really like it, I you might want to read the prequel.
I'm not gonna stop you.
So are you going to read the prequel at some point?
No, probably
Yeah,
not.
I think that wraps up the Summoner series.
Yep.
Unless you have anything else to say. They haven't made a movie out of it, so we can't talk about a movie.
That'd be such a cool movie or like animated series.
So, Lena, what shall we be reviewing next time?
Well, mother,
Mother.
we we shall be reviewing The Lost Causes of Bleak Creek by Rhett McLaughlin and Link Neal.
Also known as.
Good Mythical Morning, or Rhett and Link.
Until next time, I'm Christy.
And I'm Lena.
And this is
Generation Gap Book Reviews.